Okay, calling to order the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Government Ops. This morning we'll hear from the Department of Accounting and General Services, who will give us a preview of their biennium budget requests. Good morning. Happy New Year.
Well, good morning, Chair. Morning, Chair McKelvey, Vice Chair Morawaki. I don't see Vice Chair Gabbard, but members of the Committee of Ways and Means and the Committee on Government Operations. Aloha and Happy New Year.
Aloha.
Thank you for having us here this morning. Mahalo for this opportunity to be before all of you this morning. My name is Keith Regan, Comptroller and Director for the Department of Accounting and General Services. We've submitted our written testimony to the committee that provided an overview of our operations and outlined our priorities. In addition, you have our biennium budget requests that was submitted by Governor Green for your consideration as well. On behalf of the more than 800 hardworking DAGS team members throughout the state of Hawaii, I would like to express our deep appreciation to the committee for your consideration of our requests. Chair, with your permission, I would like to just briefly introduce our leadership team from DAGS that have joined us here this morning, if that would be okay with you.
Proceed.
Thank you. Joining me to my immediate left is our Deputy Comptroller, Myo-Ling Silliman. Myo-Ling has been an absolute gem to work with. She's absolutely amazing, has tremendous knowledge, and we have worked effectively as a team to carry out the mission of the department over the past 2 years. And I'm eternally grateful for her patience and her expertise that she brings to this team in helping to support us to be able to move forward on the many activities and functions that we have within the department. So thank you very much, Myo-Ling, for being here. And in order of program IDs, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our team from AGS 101, 102, and 103, which is our accounting division, our accounting administrator, Lydia Nash. Just please stand. Lydia was officially selected and appointed into this role as of October 16, 2023. So we're very fortunate to have her on our team. From AGS 104, representing our audit division, audit administrator, Ronald Shigi. From AGS 105, representing the Office of Information Practices and attached agency to DAGS, Director Carlotta Amarino. Ms. Amarino was recently appointed by Governor Green on December 6th. So congratulations. Thank you for being here. AGS 111, representing the Archives Division, Archives Administrator, Dr. Adam Jansen. From AGS 131, representing the Office of Enterprise Technology Services, our Chief Information Officer, Christine Sakuda. For those of you that are familiar with Christine, she recently joined our team as the CIO and was appointed by Governor Green as the CIO effective August 3rd, 2024. AGS 203, representing risk management, we have our risk manager, Tracy Kitaoka. AGS 211, representing land survey division, Administrator Reed Sarad. From AGS 221 and 223, representing our public works division, Administrator Gordon Wood. Gordon, who many of you are familiar with, who had been with Public Works for many years, was selected and appointed to serve as the administrator of the Public Works Division as of June 3rd, 2024. AGS 231, 232, 233, and 234, representing our Central Services Division Administrator, James Kurata, who also started with DAGS actually in August of 2023. AGS 240 and 244, representing our State Procurement Office, which is an attached agency to DAGS, Management Analyst Jake Chang. From AGS 251, 252, Automotive Management Division, actually our administrator was not able to attend today due to some personal issues that he had to deal with, so unfortunately couldn't be here. From AGS 807, representing our Neighbor Island District offices, we have our Kauai District Office, Administrator and Engineering Program Manager, Eric Agena. From AGS 871, representing the Campaign Spending Commission, Executive Director, Kristen Izumi Nitao. From AGS 879, representing the Office of Elections, Chief Elections Officer, Scott Nagao. From AGS 881, representing the State Foundation on Culture and the Arts, Executive Director, Karen Ewald. Representing the King Kamehameha Celebration Commission, Executive Director, Amy Hammond. Representing AGS 891, the 911 Board, Executive Director Royce Murakami. From AGS 901, we have, which is our Comptroller's Office, we have a number of individuals that are joining us here as well. And if I miss anyone, I apologize, but our Planning and Policy Analyst, Tony Benabisi, as well as our Business Management Officer, Miyoki Ng, and our Management Analyst, Andrew Choi. We also have our newly appointed communications officer, Diane Ako, who's joining us here today as well. From our personnel office, we have our HRO, our human resource officer, Daylene Liu. And from our systems and procedures office, we have our acting systems manager, Sharon Murakami. So chairs and members, you can see just from the long list of people that I've introduced that we have a very broad responsibility as a department. But these people that I've introduced are truly the backbone that have helped lead the department in its mission to provide critical services to our sister departments and the public. We recognize that our ability to successfully serve is dependent on support from this body, and we wish to express our gratitude for your ongoing trust in our ability to carry out our mission. We are also very, very grateful to the more than 800 DAGS team members throughout the state of Hawaii that are the heart and soul of this department. Mahalo. Chair, as reflected and as I mentioned in some of my initial introductions, our department provides a broad range of services with our primary mission and focus on attaining maximum value for state taxpayers by providing physical, financial, and technical infrastructure support for state departments and agencies so that they may accomplish their missions. We strive to achieve this through the 8 divisions, 7 offices, and 11 attached agencies that make up our department. Through these resources, DAGS provides support to virtually every department of our state. As our state grows, so too does the demand for our services. Increasing demand combined with workforce challenges requires that we make investments in technology and business process modernization efforts that will help us perform more efficiently and effectively. The modernization of our 55-year-old financial management system, known as FAMOUS, many of you are probably familiar with that, is one of the most transformative projects the department has undertaken in decades. An incredible 900,000 transactions flow through the existing system with a total value of more than $72 billion. That's equivalent to the state of Hawaii's GDP being processed by a system that has well outlived its expected life. We're happy to announce that we anticipate releasing the much anticipated RFP for the replacement of this system before the end of this month, January. This project would not be possible without the support, the ongoing support of this legislative body and the governor and the hundreds of state employees that have been and will continue to be a part of it. So thank you for that. As part of this project, we are investing significant resources into re-engineering the way we've done business now. And this is not a typo, but for the last 100 years. When you look at some of the processes that we have in place within our accounting division, some of those have been part of the way we do business now since it was codified back in the 20s. So it's incredibly long and old and some very antiquated processes that need to be modernized. This is not just a technology project, but it is truly a transformation of our operations. We're requesting, and you'll see it in our budget requests, a second tranche of funding in this budget as part of our CIP, which is going to include that $35 million for the second piece of the funding of the project, but also funding for positions, staff augmentation, as well as the creation of the Business Transformation Office. We continue to push forward on numerous brick and mortar projects that will have long-term positive impacts on the community as well. The new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District, the Wahiawa Civic Center, which, by the way, Chair, I had an opportunity to visit that about a week and a half ago, went out and just check on the progress, and they're making great progress on that project. So the team has been working very hard to make sure that that project gets delivered on time and on budget, as well as the Kahalui Civic Center and the Oahu Community Correctional Center, just to name a few of the projects that are in our portfolio. Our Public Works Division, with a team of only 77 people, currently has 42 projects in planning valued at $65 million, 300 projects in design valued at $1.78 billion, and 113 projects that are in construction statewide at a total value of $675 million. That's 455 projects in various phases with a value of more than $2.5 billion that our Public Works Division is expertly handling. So thank you, Gordon, for all your hard work. As projects are completed and new facilities brought online, our team at Central Services Division are developing plans to service them now and well into the future. DAGS has direct and indirect responsibility of over 270 facilities throughout the state of Hawaii, with 109 of them located here on Oahu, 83 on Hawaii Island, 56 on Maui, and 29 on Kauai. In addition, our team is responsible for managing 8 cemeteries. Yes, DAGS is responsible for cemeteries, with 6 of those on Oahu, 1 on Kauai, and 1 on Hawaii Island. You'll see in various requests you'll see within our budget requests, the establishment of a office that will help to manage our cemetery operations throughout the state. There are positions as well as funding to support the ongoing maintenance of these cemeteries. This will allow us to properly and respectfully provide the repair, maintenance, and upkeep, the final resting place of more than 6,000 of our community members and ancestors. We're asking for 2 positions and $1 million in operating funds in the budget. DAGS continues to play a role in the recovery efforts of the Lahaina disaster, including through ongoing discussions related to the rebuilding of various facilities that were destroyed during the fire. We're committed to working with the West Maui community, with our legislators, with our affected departments to provide assistance with these efforts. In addition, our risk management office continues to push forward with our insurance providers as part of the claims process to seek proceeds that may be used to support West Maui. To date, we have received $42 million from our insurance carriers for losses related to the fire. You will see in our budget request a ceiling increase of $200 million in anticipation of additional proceeds related to this process, which we anticipate getting over the next few years. I wish I had time to cover other divisions and operations in this overview, but for the purposes of time, I would like to just mention one last thing before moving into the review of our requests. Although we continue to have vacancies within our department, we've made great strides in reducing our vacancy rate these past few years. We went from a department-wide, including all attached agencies, vacancy rate of 21% in 2023 to 17% in 2024. Our team has pushed hard to recruit people into hard-to-fill positions with success, thanks to the efforts of our administrators, DHERD, HGEA, and our DAGS human resource team. Just to put it into perspective, out of the 840.5 positions that we have, 701 of those positions are now filled. 139.5 positions are vacant. 138.5 are in active recruitment. In fact, one of the positions vacant is an engineering program manager for Hawaii Island for the East Hawaii District Office. I have interviews scheduled tomorrow for that position, and hopefully we'll get that filled as quickly as possible. So moving quickly and as fast as we can on that. But engineers and architects, as we know, and we've had this conversation over numerous years, are some of the hardest to fill positions within the state of Hawaii. They are now on their own salary schedule, which allows us to compete with the private sector. That was a huge difference. Wage-wise, with the private sector, now we are on a level playing field. An engineer 5 salary range is now between 102 and 130,000, whereas before it was between, I don't know, something like maybe 90 and 100 and something, 120 something thousand, which made it very hard for us to compete with the private sector. But now this has sparked new interests in people who in the past maybe would not have wanted to come and work for the state. So we're very excited about that. In addition to the engineers, we're happy to announce that the architects are also included in that additional newly created pay scale. So we just really appreciate the hard work of HGEA, of DHERD, as well as our team to make that possible. We've participated in job fairs. We've utilized the Hele Imua internship program through DLIR, and we've actively recruited retiring federal employees to our ranks. So there's another opportunity for the state. If other departments aren't already doing it, there are retiring engineers that are looking for a second career. They're retiring at age 55 to 58 years old. They still have the opportunity to work another 10, 15 years, and they want to be a part of this community. So we found great success in that particular category of individuals, attracting them to our rank. And interestingly enough, through Hele Imua, we've had 5 interns that have worked for DAGS. We've actually hired one of those interns within our Systems and Procedures office. So that is a great program. We ask that you continue to fund that and support DLIR in that particular effort. We have much more ground to cover within DAGs related to reducing vacancies. We recognize that we're not perfect, but we've made a lot of great progress as a team. And we recognize and appreciate BNF's efforts to eliminate positions that have been vacant for 4 or more years. But we also would humbly ask that this body please consider providing DAGs at least 1 more year as it relates to those engineering positions that are on the schedule to be cut. There's actually, I think there's 4 engineering 5 positions that are scheduled to be cut. There's a total of 5, but we're just asking for the 5th one is not an engineer position. It's a contract support staff member. But we think with the strides we've made with the new salary schedule, with our success in attracting federal retirees to come and join our ranks, we think we can get those positions filled. And so if we could humbly ask for your support in getting those returned to us, we will make every effort to get them filled. And if we don't get them filled, we'll certainly relinquish them in a future budget session. But we feel confident we can get that done. Chair Dela Cruz, Chair McKelvey, Vice Chair Moriwaki, members, I'd like to just take this opportunity, if it's okay with you, Chair, to review the department's biennium budget requests. As part of this process, the department has actually made initial 50 requests to the governor that totaled about $234 million in fiscal year 26 and $228 million in fiscal year 27. You can see this is reflected in table 4, which starts on page 18 of 93 of our submittal. Through an iterative process, we were fortunate to gain the support of the governor and his team for much of what was initially requested by the department. If we turn to table 6, which starts on page 20 of 93, this table comprises the additions that were in the governor's budget for our department. And in total, the department had an increase. Yes, Chair, sorry.
It's page 41 for us. If you go on the, if you look it up, if you do page 41. Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Chair, apologize. And Chair, if there's any questions or, if you want to, please, interrupt me at any point. But of that amount in fiscal year 26, 28 million were general funds, 7 million were special funds, 700,000 were trust funds, 140,000 interdepartmental transfers, and 200 million, which is the bulk of our request, is a ceiling increase specifically for those claims monies that we're anticipating coming in, so that we can go ahead and be able to use those monies to rebuild some of these facilities that were destroyed in the Lahaina fire. Those are revolving funds, by the way. We also did have reductions, which are found in table 5. And Chair, I apologize, I don't know what page table 5 is on yours, but it's 19 on ours.
You have 2 reductions.
Yes, 2 reductions totaling $7.9 million, which included the transferring out of the security contract to law enforcement, which by statute, they have the responsibility of providing those types of services to state facilities. And so I know that that had been placed within DAGs, but we believe that a better location for that would be within law enforcement. And they have graciously agreed to take on that responsibility. We've worked with them in the transition of that contract. They're doing a good job. They work very closely with our team, and we feel confident they can continue to manage that. Would ask for your support in that effort as well. And then there's a small amount for IT expenses that are being pushed off to DHERD as part of non-recurring expenses. So, Chair, if it's acceptable, I'd like to now go through our budget requests in more detail and would ask that you please indulge me by turning to table 6. I think you mentioned it was page 41 on your schedule, but it's entitled, our tab is entitled the proposed budget additions. This table provides much more detail and context on the requests that were submitted and included for the governor's submittal. So, Chair, the first item on the request is for an increase in and support for additional funding for our ESCO lease payments of $433,000 in both fiscal year 26 and 27. And Chair, would you like me to stop and just allow for questions after I go through each one of these? Just push through it.
Believe me,
okay.
No one's afraid to interrupt.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. The second item, which is our department-wide priority number 5, is to add additional funds to support full year funding for 2 permanent positions in our West Hawaii District Office. That is $128,000 for both fiscal years. Item number 3, department-wide priority number 6 is additional funds or adding funds for full year funding for a permanent full-time groundskeeper position in West Hawaii. This is, you see it's $25,000 because we've already got half year funding established for that position. We're just asking for full year funding. The next item is for full year funding for 5 permanent positions within the West Hawaii District Office. Again, these were half funded positions in fiscal year 25. We're just asking that those be fully funded in fiscal years 26 and 27. We are also requesting that the full funding be provided in the next item for our painter with the East Hawaii District Office. That is a $33,900 request for both fiscal years 26 and 27. The next item number 6 on this list, priority number 9, is to provide additional funds for the State Procurement Office, specifically for the Small Business Coordinator. And this request is in accordance with Act 168 and appropriating some funds for a 5-year period. And also as part of HRS 103D 902, we're asking for $126,000 in both fiscal years. And as I mentioned, State Procurement Office is here if there's any questions specifically about that request. Moving on, our next item that we've requested is for funding of our Hawaii Information Portal, Cherry Road and enterprise expenditures. This includes funding to support cloud hosting, application support services, and PeopleSoft licensing. This is for our payroll system. So these monies were, this was actually handled by ETS in the past. However, our systems and accounting branch is really where this belongs within our accounting division. And so we're asking to move this funding essentially out of there and place it in the right place where it can be managed by the team that has the direct responsibility over that function.
So we can have overpayments.
No. Yep. As it relates to the next item, priority number 11, this is adding 6 positions to that branch, systems accounting branch, specifically for the EFS project. These are to help develop our subject matter experts. And the reason why this is so critical to get these positions in place right now is because as we're moving forward with the EFS project, once the project concludes, we're going to need these subject matter experts to help. They're basically the support desk. These are the individuals that are going to take calls from the 18 departments. They're going to be utilizing the new enterprise financial system once it's in place. To have them in place early now, to get them trained up and be a part of the project so that they're familiar from the ground level all the way up to when we're ready to launch is going to be really important for us. So making sure that we get those positions in place is extremely critical. Included in this funding amount is also what we call staff augmentation. And this project is going to require that existing staff that have expertise are going to have to dedicate time to the project, significant time to the project as we begin to develop it out. But their work will still be there, right? And so in order to accommodate that and to help the department so that they're not overwhelmed, so we don't have burnout of these individuals, we're asking for some staff augmentation funding so that we can find external people to come in, backfill those positions while they're helping to support EFS and the development of that project. So that's included in the $2.9 million of our request. And you know, that the staff augmentation piece, which equates to a little over $2 million, that's going to go away once EFS launches, right? Because we no longer will need that staff augmentation piece for the project. The next item, priority number 12, we're asking for a special project position. This is the creation of the Business Transformation Office within the Office of the Comptroller. This is going to be specifically the project management team on EFS. And so in order to get this magnitude of a project across the finish line, we're going to need a dedicated team to that project. It's not a permanent team. The team is not going to be there, you know, well, I shouldn't say that. It may be a permanent team because there may be other projects that this Business Transformation Office can handle in the future after EFS. As an example, modernization of our payroll system, which is going to be next after EFS. But the idea here is to create this business transformation office, have the leadership team in place to manage a big project like this so that we can tackle other future projects as well. But primarily, and the primary focus of this position and of this team is EFS, 100%. Right now, it's being handled by myself. It's being handled by other people on my team who have other jobs and responsibilities. We just need we need a team that's absolutely dedicated to this project. That's how big this project is. So again, that's our request there. We are asking for some additional funding on the next item for electricity costs of $1 million. You know, as I mentioned, we've got 270 facilities that we're responsible for. 130 of those are DAGs or DAGs managed. And so we are required to pay the electric bills, right, for those facilities. And like everything else, those costs go up over time. And so we're asking for some additional funding to support that effort as well.
What happened to 13 and 14?
13 and 14, actually 13 was a $50,000 request for investigative
So they're
services.
gone.
Yeah, they were not
Oh,
supported.
okay.
Oh, and so I'm sorry, but 14 was the reduction in the security
points.
contract. Yes, right. Right. And number 16, we are asking for some security guard funding, specifically for some of our CSD buildings that we're having some additional issues with. And so we're asking for a little bit of money there to be able to hire some additional after hours staff to provide some coverage so that people aren't defecating and, you know, doing all kinds of other stuff to some of our facilities.
How do you reconcile this then? So some security contracts go to DLE and some stay with you?
We wouldn't object to it going to DLE. I think this is just how it kind of fell out in the process. And so if you wanted to move that $120,000 over to DLE, I don't think, you know, we would not object to that. I can actually see it making much more sense having everything with DLE, and then we just.
Yeah, but how would they know which buildings need the
So
support?
that's where we interact with DLE, right, on our needs for the facilities. And we even though it's been transferred, they're still reliant upon us to give them feedback and input on where we need those services.
Just for the couple.
Yeah, that's where we've been having the biggest issue right now. We've been having major issues.
Everything else is covered in the reduction.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes, Vice Chair.
part of this is the design of some of the buildings.
Sure.
Because when you have big lawns, big setbacks, you're just inviting
Mhm.
people. And so in my discussions with some of the departments, I'm not sure why we're not working with some of the counties and making sure that the setback is minimal
Mhm.
so that we have a larger space and then you're not having to deal with that as much.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think you bring up a really good point. And as we move forward with our projects, in fact, if you look at the Kahului Civic Center project, they are pushing right up to the street. I mean, they are as close to the street, I think, as we can get on that project, as I recall looking at some of those plans. So to your point, we got to push that envelope, right? We need to, sure, we still have to have some aesthetics, right? We still need to make it look nice. But yeah, we don't need these large sweeping, 100-foot wide lawns.
That's true. It just depends where. So, I mean, I'm just going to speak maybe downtown Hilo or even the urban part of Wahiawa. Traditionally, there were no setbacks.
Right.
So I'm not sure why the county requires setbacks in areas that traditionally, and especially old plantation towns, there were awnings, the sidewalk, and then you could walk in. Now there's all these setbacks, which don't fit the character of the community, and then it just allows what you're talking about.
That's right.
More loitering. So that got to be reconciled.
Yeah, but it's not only just the setbacks, Donovan. The area that you're talking about in that community, they have a whole new encampment of houseless people. So the influx of the houseless that hanging in the area at night has nothing to do with the lawn. They just go through the building to go to the next destination by the city where they all hang out on the streets and everything. So that's the area you're talking about. They're not really on the lawn like they are at the Kapolei police station. They're mostly coming in and using, whatever they're doing on the facility. They have so much hanging out there in the lawn. Right? This is going through the property and using a bathroom. That's what it is.
So security comes in though, right?
Yeah. And it's been effective in the Capital District. It's been effective. We've shown that, by having a presence, we are deterring a lot of like some of the activities that used to happen here in the district. So a good example is Kalani Moku. Our gate has been broken, for a couple of weeks now. The gate into the
And who's
into the
who's in
parking.
charge of fixing that?
That's us. So, but but it's a parts issue. We're trying to get a part, to fix it. So it is what it is, right? I mean, but yeah, I mean, and my point of bringing that up is we've got 24-hour presence in this area, and they make periodic visits to the facility to make throughout the night to make sure that there's no one coming into the garage causing problems or even on the property itself. And I was down at the DOTAX building one night. I had to so as you know, my wife works for DLIR, and she had to pick something up from her office, so I brought her in, and this must have been about 8:30 at night. Sure enough, as I'm waiting for her, she's getting whatever she needed to get. Here comes API Security, who's our contractor, pulls up, and they literally did their rounds while I was there. So I know they're doing their job, right? They're patrolling our facilities, and they are removing people that don't belong there throughout the night. So it is effective. It is definitely effective.
With the securities, then, what about all of those people, or I call the ninjas, when they start taking over our buildings, and what do you call that? The
No.
of the graffitis that's
Mhm.
happening.
Mhm.
Has graffitis been prevalent or some prevalent on our buildings, our state buildings? Not as much.
Not so much on our state buildings.
Counties, yeah.
I think so.
What?
Where we're having
Don't
problems.
invite people. You can do
Yeah.
that. Don't need to announce that
Yeah.
in public.
Tigers Towers.
Why I'm asking
Yeah.
is because, well, that's a good answer.
We're doing a very good job.
Asking is that the security is working.
It is working. It is
So,
working.
These ninjas are not around.
At least not state
Not
facilities.
state
So we appreciate that.
API has a contract.
Yep.
Is that not, so it's going to be transferred to DLE?
It has been. Yep. Yep.
So
It has
it's not
been.
going to be API, or they still will contract?
No, because they have, there is actually procurement in place to allow for them to take it
continue
over.
under
Yep.
DLE.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. And they've been doing a great job. So, okay. So, moving on to the next item, which is, department-wide priority number 17. We're asking, this is,
Way too low in a number, but
yes, and if you'd like to, we certainly could use additional staffing, there, but, we anticipate that the project will be completed in fiscal year 27. And so we're going to need, that custodial, that individual to help us, maintain that facility on a day-to-day basis. And as you know, Chair, it's a long distance to get out there to Wahiawa. And so if we were to bring staff from Kapolei or from in town, it would just be a very inefficient process. And there'll be a lot of people in that facility, and we're going to need to have full-time coverage. And so our request there is for the position as well as some of the necessary equipment to be able to do the job out there. And again, happy to have more positions if you'd like to, provide them. Mhm. Yeah, and just a note that that amount is for half-year funding, for that position. The next item is for some fencing contracts. One of the things that we've noted here in the Capital District, even though we've got a really good security program in place, is that, you still have issues, like as an example, with some of our facilities where I'm just, here's a really good example of some of the memorials, right? Where people are going in and they're desecrating the memorials, and, having some, well-placed fencing, I think, and well-designed fencing can help prevent some of that activity that's happening. I was just thinking about the war memorials that are located over here by Richard Street. It's kind of in an off the way place. Or is it that way? Sorry. But people are going in there, they're pulling letters off. I mean, I don't know why they're doing this kind of stuff, but we just can't be there all the time. But having a fence that we can close off, like when hours are, when it's off hours or after hours, would help to secure that place.
Is
So-
this I have a question. Is this total fencing? Because I see you have 250,000.
Yeah, it's not enough.
allocated. Are you helping other agencies like Department of Ag, the corrections? I think the corrections request is for like $18 million. So
Mm.
I don't know if that's
It-
a different kind of perimeter fencing. that you
Probably.
could Get, maybe talk with them
No.
to see what can be done.
No, you don't want a prison fence around the war memorial.
no, no,
I mean,
no.
it should be aesthetic and designed nice.
Correct. The idea would be to have something like what is surrounding Iolani Palace or around the Hemeter building, something like that, that is regal and it's, appropriate to show respect for the
Yeah.
memorial that we're protecting.
Yeah, which is
Um,
awkward because the governor's home, the fence is chain link in the back
Yeah.
next to the Lily building.
Mhm.
Be a little more aesthetic here. Like aesthetic
Yeah.
fencing.
Graffiti on.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so, we hope to get some of that work done with the funding request that we have in and Yeah.
It
our
doesn't
next,
match the rest of the property.
correct.
It's
I-
awkward.
I understand. Thank you. We'll definitely look at it and see.
I mean, he can advocate. I'm sure they can advocate, but
Bougainvilleas.
we pass it every day when we all drive in.
Yeah.
Use bougainvilleas, have thorns on it. So, yeah.
Getting rice. These arms now. I've never seen the arms used. What is the purpose?
Which-
of these arms?
which arms? Mhm. Yeah. That will eventually become part of our closure, if you will, of the parking structure within the state capitol facility itself, which would only limit it to employees and authorized individuals to come into the parking structure. This is way down the road. This is not like happening next year. Yeah, but the gate, if we put the gate up and down excessively, it's going to cause additional problems. Those gates are not designed to be, constantly going up and down constantly. Well, they function. They just are not positioned. Correct, because we're not ready to, close off the facility yet. And eventually the idea was to put a guard.
When there's a close confirmation vote, all of a sudden they'll work.
You said that you shouldn't be going, the gates going up and down. But yet you're going up and down and you've got the arms and you're not using it.
The
So which
arms-
is it? Is it? Which is it?
Senator, so when we do close the parking structure, which is going to be down the road, once we have additional parking created, we're talking probably, 4 to 5 years from now.
These arms up.
That was a prior project. The DAGs had a prior project, which was funded, I think, through some of the ARPA monies that we got to do some of these improvements. And the idea was to have a guard shack actually right there in the middle where a sheriff would control the ingress and egress
The
of
roundabout.
people. That's
In the
correct.
roundabout?
That's correct. Yes.
So you mean like the office we have is corner that nobody's ever there and ever been there?
Yes.
Since I've been here.
Which one? The one downstairs?
Oh, and then, yeah.
Watch the book.
Well, now they do it by camera.
That's right. They do it remotely. They're doing it from inside the office. Yeah.
In these things, you use federal monies because you have it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, the screening machines that we bought and never used.
That's a
Now you
Which-
have these arms.
Which we've looked for and we never found. So I don't know where those screening machines went to back, 10 years ago or whatever, but,
But now you have these arms that's been up for, I don't know how many months.
yeah.
You're telling me it's not down the line for another 4 years. By that time, I don't know the arm's gonna work.
Because, Senator, we need the parking right in place first before we can shut down.
But that's a plan. Where's the plan so that we don't have stuff that's outdated 5
Yeah.
years from now when you go ahead and have this parking? You put the horse before the cart. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Or is it the cart before the horse?
Yeah.
Hence the planning request, right?
This,
That is correct.
this, I mean, even though I'm not,
There is a planning request that we'll get to in
this
our.
preceded you.
Yes, this preceded, yes.
So we're not even using it and you justify it by saying that you shouldn't be going up and down with this.
Well, the gates are huge, right? Those gates that exist now, the metal gates that are in place are huge. And the motors to operate those gates are not designed for constant up and down in order to prevent ingress and egress, right? They're not designed for
I
that.
understand that. I'm
But
just saying.
the arms are.
Yeah, but you're not gonna use them for another.
No, I understand. I totally understand.
Okay, I think maybe Farrington can use them.
Yeah.
And then after 5 years, you bring.
I know, I understand your point, Senator, and I appreciate where you're coming from on it. And, you know, but this is a project that was well before,
It's been some of
Well,
those projects.
it's not, yeah. Anyways,
Real quickly,
Yes,
you
yes.
guys would do the security plan, but now everything's going to DLE. Are they going to be doing security planning and upgrades? And so they're going to be handling like bollards and
Yep.
other types of improvements?
Yes.
Okay.
yep, absolutely. And you know, Director Lowe has been extremely engaged in this
No,
process.
Public Works is still gonna do it.
We'll help to support them. Yes.
Yeah.
So did you hire a
Yeah.
consultant to put up these arms?
I was not part of that project, so I'd have to go back and take a look and see, but
Because I have a question. Can I ask about consultants and stuff?
Yeah, well,
We're
how,
not done
how many more we got?
we got a bunch more because we got to get into the E
Well,
ETS.
If you have, okay, if you have a question specifically about the table, then just interrupt. But if not, why don't we wait till the table's done and then everybody can
Sure.
ask?
Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks, Senator, and thank you, Chair. Moving on, after the fencing contract is our 19th priority request, which is increasing some of the fringe benefits for our neighbor island district offices. These are for the U-funded positions that the DOE
Oh,
supports us
no
in. These are
wonder
fringe
Adema
benefits.
is here.
I'm sorry?
I have a question. So you asked for West Hawaii, more positions. Is
Not more positions, just full year funding for
Oh.
already
oh,
approved
'cause they're already
positions.
funded. So
Yeah.
so your positions are also helping the DOE.
Yes,
It's all like all together in terms of the county
that's correct.
projects. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Still on
But-
Big Island? And I,
No, he's on.
Yes, I was asking because it's.
for the positions for Big Island?
Mhm.
Can I ask a
No,
question?
which line?
Well, you're talking about the positions, and our issue on Big Island,
No, but which priority line?
Which line?
well, I'm not sure.
Okay, why don't you keep going till we
Okay.
can
Yeah.
find it?
Okay.
But as long as it has to, do because you were on Big Island, so
No,
that's.
Yes.
No, why don't we go line by line, and then when we're done with this, then we can ask questions.
Okay, the next item, priority number 20, is for some funding, both for positions as well as equipment to support our archives modernization initiative. And we're asking for 130,000 and 2 half-time positions to help support some of those initiatives. And you can read through some of this, but really it is to just make it way more efficient so that we can better manage all of the documents that we have that are stored there. Our priority item number 21 is we're asking for that $200 million increase in our ceiling for the revolving fund, specifically for risk management. This is to accept the claims monies that are going to be coming in over the next year or two from our insurance providers related to the fire. And priority number 22, which is to request the cemetery management office. I kind of led with this in my opening comments, but we have 8 cemeteries right now. We have a little under 30 acres of cemetery property in total. The majority of them are located here on Oahu. There's 6 here, and then there's 2 on the neighbor islands. We don't have any on Maui, but we do have 1 on Kauai and 1 on Hawaii Island. Currently, the way that this is being handled is when we have time, we'll get out there and do it. And so oftentimes it gets neglected. We don't have staff to be able to send out to properly maintain. There's vandalism that occurs at some of these final resting places. It's very, unfortunately, this desecration needs to stop. And the only way we can do it is by providing the resources to be able to take care of our cemeteries that are now in our charge. There's an entire statute, HRS 110, dedicated to this, where it clearly puts this responsibility with the comptroller. I guess maybe that's how general services operates. We just get everything, but I'm taking this very seriously because for me, this is the final resting place, of 6,000 individuals who were part of our community. They still have loved ones that are here who want to go and visit, these final resting places. And in order for us to properly and respectfully treat those final resting places, we need the positions to manage it, and we need the funding to be able to bring in the resources to go out and take care of these facilities.
So, who's resting in these places? So
Former citizens, people that lived in
how
this
do
community.
they, you have 8 cemeteries and
Yep.
you've got 6,000 people resting in them. Who are they and should it be more self-sustaining on
The reason why they come to the state is because the original operators of those cemeteries no longer exist. And that property then reverts to the state.
But
And so
it's
DLNR
previously privately run?
privately could be a church, could be, some kind of operator, private operator.
Yeah,
Um,
through the years, legislators tried to
Like the Pearl
take
City,
care of
one.
their district or whatever.
right.
the
The
case.
Pearl City one, right?
Yeah.
Used to be with DCCA, now it's with you guys.
It's either with us or on its way to being with us. So,
So they're all private abandoned, or is there any, like?
yeah, I don't know like the history on each and every one of them, but I do know for a fact that these are former church cemeteries, some of them, and some of them are private operator cemeteries who no longer exist. They just don't exist anymore. And so DLNR gets the property and then DLNR by statute transfers it to DAGs.
But not all are cemeteries, right? Some are graveyards.
All eight of
No,
them
there's a
are,
difference. One has a church, one doesn't.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I learned something in Miami today.
Full of useless information.
This is a great community.
So on,
Yes.
on the cemeteries, comptroller, are any of the cemeteries that you have in your custody, are there any veterans buried?
I'm sure. Yeah, I can't, I
So
don't,
just to clarify, because I know DOD has cemeteries, but
Mhm.
it's veteran cemeteries,
Yeah.
so this is different.
these are not veteran cemeteries, but there may be veterans interned there.
And I know Senator Aquino, Senator Wakai and I, we were working on the Sunset Memorial Park that Chair McKelvey brought
Right.
up. So is DAG's position not to take any more future cemeteries, or are you guys open to taking cemeteries?
I don't think we have a choice, right? I mean, I think once that property is accepted by the state, by statute, it comes to DAGs.
Guess that's different.
So HRS 110 is pretty clear about that process. But in order for us to be able to accommodate additional cemeteries, we're going to need the funding, for this program. To me, it's important. It was important enough for a legislative body at some point in time to create an entire section in the statute for it. And we have, for whatever reason, DAGS has tried to manage it, without having specifically dedicated resources or funds to it. And we just can't do it properly. And we can't do it in a respectful way for these people that are there. And so we're asking for your support in that
Yeah.
request.
Is this growing?
Thank you.
Or it's just you have 8 and that's it? Or how do you?
It just depends. It depends over time because other
Yeah.
legislators might say, hey, in my district, there's nobody taking care of it.
That's
So
right.
then they put, so it's gonna, we won't be here. There'll be other
One of those
legislators
things.
and they'll keep, and it might be our graveyard cemetery that you might actually take care of.
But you don't
And-
want any more. And what was
Well-
great about the West Hawaii one, it was designated for the veterans.
Mhm.
And so that's clean. You have
No, but that's a
veterans here,
different-
you know, but
that's different,
yeah.
So,
That's
Yeah.
different.
but you inherited
No.
the older cemeteries.
And I'm not going to say that I don't want any more. All I can say is that by statute, we're required.
It's not
right?
his call.
Yeah.
It's what the legislature decides in the future.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. But what I want to do,
Hypotheticals, so we should probably move on.
By the county, so do you want to
Don't turn
take
into
over?
BS.
well, that's the thing.
For you.
So that's the thing. So some of these actually, the county thought they belonged to them. But then it was discovered it doesn't belong to the county. It belongs to the state. So, but at the end of the day, I just want to be able to properly take care of these final resting places in a respectful manner. And I humbly ask for your support in the development of this program. So.
Amen.
There might be, I think at some future point, if you don't think this is the best way to fulfill the statute, maybe we should create a trust fund and a state nonprofit that just does that. So that we should just explore it because if the current model doesn't work or
Mhm.
doesn't seem to be working, then we
Mhm.
should maybe look at different models to fulfill the
That's what Roy
statute.
started with, was the trust fund idea when he did this.
And
bill.
so
Yeah.
anyway, we should move on.
Okay, and now I'd like to transition over to our CIO, our Chief Information Officer. She's going to lead us through a number of requests that we have. As I mentioned in my opening remarks,
Go ahead, Sam.
our CIO, Christine Sakuda, recently came on board to the team and she's been doing an amazing job. I've had the opportunity to work with her when she was at THG. And now I have an opportunity to work very closely with her as the head of the Office of Enterprise Technology Services. And so with that, I would like to turn it and,
It's Cherokee.
oh, I'm sorry, Cherokee. I would like to turn it over to Christine to go through her priority requests.
Mahalo.
Good morning.
Aloha Chair Aquino, Chair Dela Cruz, Chair McKelvey, Vice Chair Moriwaki, and members of the committee. My name is Christine Sakuda, and it's my pleasure to serve as the state CIO for the Office of Enterprise Technology Services. The mission of ETS is to advance operational excellence of government through trusted collaboration, partnerships, and technology leadership through the spirit of aloha. We ensure critical state infrastructure is reliable and secure. We ensure that the state's programs running on that infrastructure are accessible and responsive to the public, and we promote innovative use of technology and data. We have 13 budget requests that we're going to go through, and all of these support that mission.
Wait, before we continue, can you just describe to the committee the bill that passed on how the
Yes.
management between the two offices or the relationship
Yep.
between your office and her office has changed?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And so, HRS, I think it's 26.6 was modified to allow for a number of things. One is to allow for exempt employees related to modernization to be within the comptroller's office, which is now allows us to do the business transformation office, right? Those kind of things. But it also, there was also a part of the legislation that was enacted that now has the chief information officer be appointed by the governor, but report directly to the comptroller. In the past, it was appointed by the governor and reporting directly to the governor, which made it a little awkward for the department because if you look at the language that establishes ETS, it never said that it was an attached agency. And so the comptroller always was in this weird place where, she or he didn't have direct management or oversight over, and I don't mean this in any way to diminish the importance of the role of the CIO, but of the division head, essentially, right? So now we've clarified that thanks to your support, thanks to this body's support, the governor's support, that language has been changed.
This was a result of the concern. Remember, we had the
Yeah,
$8 billion
yeah.
that not
So-
disappeared, but just wasn't spent wisely.
Mhm.
And so that bill passed thanks to
Yeah.
Chair
So-
Aquino.
Office, right? They don't provide them.
Yeah, so we have to, those cleanups have to occur so there's more accountability, like the comptroller saying.
Right. Right. So, and what that has done from my perspective is now we work extremely close, right? We're constantly meeting, we're constantly talking about the needs of ETS. We're constantly talking about the needs of the state from their perspective, right? Related to IT and some of the modernization efforts that she wants to do. And here I am supporting that effort, right? And making sure that she can do what she needs to do.
So way
as
more
the CIO.
coordination than before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our CIO.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Comptroller. The first item, which is priority 23, adds funds for the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement subscription. The state currently executed a 1-year Microsoft G5 licensing agreement. We are upgrading from G3 to G5, which is actually a very big upgrade. And we got that because it's such a big upgrade, we got it at a 35% discount. So the
And this is for
request,
all departments?
yes,
Yeah, okay, good. Because last year, the departments were coming in one by one because the CIO wasn't in support of it. And so I'm glad to see that this is a lot more consolidated and coordinated.
yes, thank you, Chair. We anticipate up to 14,500 licenses
Oh, wow.
statewide.
Good scalability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. The next priority 24, adds funds for cybersecurity risk mitigation. The primary goal of the ETS cybersecurity program is to protect the state infrastructure and its data. So common threats include data breaches, distributed denial of service, and ransomware. So this provides support for cybersecurity risk mitigation efforts. Priority 25 adds funds for the HIWIN, which is the Hawaii Wireless Interoperability Network. Sorry about that, skip the acronym. Telecommunications system maintenance and warranty. So the HIWIN system supports the radio towers that are scattered across all islands, and it's that network that is used by emergency response servicemen and women, and that especially was held true during the Maui disaster when there isn't any internet. The first responders depend on the radio systems to provide first response. And so this request of $630,000 provides just maintenance and operations for the network. Priority 26 adds funds for the Adobe Enterprise Term License Agreement. Like Microsoft, we support the enterprise agreement for Adobe. The state is currently in the final year of a 3-year Adobe Enterprise Term License. It covers everything from e-sign to Adobe Acrobat Pro and cloud services. And that is about $150,000. The next priority is priority 27, adds funds for advisory services. These services will provide critical support services in key areas. It helps with informed decision-making. It helps with the state IT strategic planning, which we're mandated to do, and helps ETS just stay current on what is happening around the world and in the country in terms of digital transformation and modernization efforts. Priority 28 adds funds for the data center decommission and migration of services. This is for $1.6 million. This request will allow ETS to continue modernizing and optimizing the state's IT systems, enhancing security and reliability and efficiency. The proactive investment will help avoid costly pitfalls, improve operational performance, and demonstrate the state's readiness to sustain and grow its enterprise.
So is this the system that will connect all of the agencies in the payroll and so forth, which with DOE?
This priority number 28, thank you for that question, is provides capacity to manage the current data center that's within the Kalani Moku building in the basement, and helps us to migrate the old infrastructure that is and the old mainframe equipment that applications are on to a new modern system.
Well, we've been talking about for years now, and why we had the original CIO come on board to connect all departments, because I understand there's like thousands of different emails. And just, you know, we have overpayments because they keep telling us that the payroll system cannot keep track of people who run out of vacation, run out of sick leave. And I want to talk about that because we have over $1 million in overpayments consistently, which is crazy that we spend that kind of money. And so what portion of your work in this budget is going to connect that? Put everybody on a system.
This request here actually supports and maintains the current infrastructure that Famous is currently on. So we work, ETS works very closely with the Comptroller Office. The modernization of the enterprise financial system will help to alleviate some of those challenges, as well as the integration of the financial system to other key state back office programs like the HIP system, payroll, and time and attendance.
So can you say that in normal language so that the public can understand what does that mean?
Just ask.
So it's the finance and accounting system and the payroll,
That
time
we
and
have
attendance.
now is all fragmented, right?
Yes.
Fragmented, and 10 years now, we've been talking about modernizing and bring it all together in-house.
ma'am.
And that a lot of the departments are fighting it because they want to keep their own little Cadillacs that is outdated and they can't get parts for it because everybody had not off the shelf, but custom made things. So the CIO was supposed to bring all of this together, and we've not seen that yet. And every time we talk about overpayments, it's the payroll system. So, you know, I've been here for 24 years in the Senate, been talking about overpayments, and haven't seen a dent in this change. So can you tell us in plain language, when can we expect to have this
come together so that we can have one system?
Yeah, so thank you. And we share your your concern about this issue
More like frustration.
and frustration. We share with it too, because we have to deal with it too, right? Like as a department, we have to deal with it.
But
So
you're putting millions of dollars as Band-Aids. Every time you come before us, Band-Aid, Band-Aid,
Yep.
Band-Aid,
But-
and it doesn't solve the problem.
But the primary issue that we need to solve as part of the development of this enterprise resource planning, that ERP that we're talking about really, right, is the backbone first, right? The foundation, which is EFS, the financial management system that we have
Right.
currently famous, 55 years old, no longer supported, written in an ancient, language that nobody even teaches in school anymore.
Preaching to the choir. So what's the solution?
So again, EFS is the key. It's the key to this thing. We get a modernized financial management system in place. The next phase of that is a modern payroll system. What they're calling is a human capital management system. HCMS is now the terminology that's used. It's no longer just like a separate HR and payroll system. It's combined. It's a human capital management system, which includes payroll and the HR
Right?
functions, right?
Right?
That's the next phase. That needs to come after we get the backbone, the foundation, and which is
So when is
EFS.
EFS done then?
So we're hopefully going to issue the RFP at the end of this month or before. We want to in the next 2 to 3 years, the project, should be completed and EFS should be live.
So we'll have to wait another at least 3 years before you start the payroll or
Well, it's not,
human
it
capital.
won't be linear, right? So it's going to be, I think we can do it.
Some overlap.
Yes. Yeah. So we can start that process
Yes.
as we kind of get towards the end of EFS.
Keith, I've heard this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I've heard this
I-
8 years ago. I've heard this 6 years ago. I've heard this 4 years ago. So I'm hearing it again now. So, I mean, I don't want to
But
be.
they're structurally.
I think that and I appreciate that. And
How many
Now,
how many CIOs have we
have a
been?
plan, so
we,
it's
we,
working.
we do have a plan.
Just move along and. Sure.
Senator,
Yeah.
I am excited about where we're heading with this, and I'm going to tell you why.
But I've heard this exact same words from previous directors.
Yeah,
Okay, and
but
that's why I'm sitting here.
I will put
How
my,
many CIOs have we been through?
I
But
understand.
they didn't have that.
Yeah, but exactly the same thing. And
We-
you're going to
we-
hear this. 4
No,
years
but
from
now if they do it again, then we gave you the structural change, we gave you the resources.
Yes, but in 4 years, we'll be saying the same thing.
Well, I'm
We
hoping,
gave you,
No,
we
but
gave you
but
31
part
million.
of it is now the
The
CIO has
Yes.
a different reporting structure. So that's a huge change
That's a change.
Mhm.
that I hope
It
is
is.
going to make a difference.
it is, and it has been.
So.
But
because-
what's the
I mean,
status
I
of
think
what
that
you've
bill
done so
will
far?
make a difference. And Henry's going to be on there.
You got EFS asking, you got the EFS asking for asking more, and then you got your.
Tell us what you've done that's different than what it was before,
yeah.
like meeting with all the departments, the users and stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. I mean, the way that we're approaching the development of this project is unlike anything we've done in the past. We have involved this is
Okay, you know what? Why don't you go back,
yeah,
do a white paper on it with the timeline, so at least we can see where that is.
Right.
And then,
yeah.
we can, to some extent, hold you accountable based on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But what I just wanted to just mention really quick is that the way we're approaching this project is different than any other project we've done in the past. Before, it's all been technology focused, primarily everything technology. But because we have this closer working relationship,
Yeah.
because
Way depended on one person, so that
Correct.
was the CIO. So
Correct.
that
Way over here.
so now
Hard.
now it's functionally led. This project is functionally led. Our people with knowledge and understanding of fiscal operations within the state are invested in this project. They're part of it. They've helped us to develop the RFP. They are in lockstep with us on this project. Unlike that is not how it was in the past. In the past, it was primarily driven from a technology perspective. You do it. We're going to change this. I don't care what you say, right? Like you're gonna have this new system. It's
Yeah,
going to
we
be.
tried Band-Aid approaches of your committee and
It is because that's what happened with payroll.
department, and people fought them, and the governor wouldn't say, you do it, and so they didn't come along, they couldn't bring everybody, because every department.
Yes.
To a certain
He's
extent.
talking about what was the case.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
He's like- and then-
That's the key, so when
So
you.
that was the case, and then the $8 million that got spent was just reiterated that they spent money to go and ask every department
Yeah, it didn't.
questions, and they got paid $8 million, nothing moved.
Yeah. And we're not going to do that, right? Like, I mean, I made that commitment, and I'll just put it out there. I mean, I'm a civil servant. Although I am an appointee right now as comptroller, and I'm the director of this department, I'm also formerly the business management officer at DCCA, and I had to deal with this stuff. Okay. And I will tell you that when my term is over and if I do go back to public service somewhere in the state, I don't want to have people coming up to me and say, why didn't you fix this? You had an opportunity. You failed, right? I don't want to see you out in the public and you go, Keith, I told you, right? I don't want to do that. So there's a lot. My point of bringing that up is I am committed to this project in a way that,
Okay, well, do your white paper, and then next year we'll know.
Yeah, we'll give you the write up, the timeline of, kind of where we are. And Christine's got all of that. I mean, she's been working on it very closely with her team. And so we'll get it to you folks. But, Senator, and I appreciate, and I'm not trying to fight you on this. I agree with you. I hear your frustration. I feel your frustration. I felt it myself being on the outside. But we really want to get this done. We're committed to getting it done. We're going to do everything we can to get it done.
Exact same statements you're making were made by other.
I get that.
Okay, I'm just saying that.
I get
So
that.
forgive me if I'm not buying the story now.
But Senator, you've asked me for things, right? You've asked me for, like, as an example, the report.
Ask other people as well, and they've
I-
come through and they didn't come through on other stuff. So
I get
it's
that.
Not an excuse.
But so far, I think I've been very
Okay,
responsive.
Senator DeCoy.
So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So this, Director, the HCMS
Yes,
that you talk about.
yes.
What does that cost?
Yeah, I mean, so the financial management system, we're estimating the cost to be, approximately 65 million. So, an HCMS, that's going to be a significant cost as well. It might even be as much, because we're not just talking about replacing payroll, but we're also talking about replacing the HR component, right? That is within the DHERD
How
side.
often do you guys do overpayments of $1 million?
Overpayments of $1 million, like to somebody gets $1 million check and an overpayment?
In general, in
No,
general.
we're tracking overpayments, and right now, the most recent report shows that we have a total with all departments of about $1 million in overpayments that have been made. So, we generate a report. In fact, I provide a report on our overpayments to track that, and our accounting division tracks that and advises the departments that they're having issues with overpayments. And it's up to the departments to then go back and claw back those funds that have been overpaid. So it's not DAGs overpaying them, right? I mean, these hours are submitted, by the departments. They're supposed to be audited by the departments. They're supposed to make sure that everything is correct. Because we have an antiquated payroll system, sometimes they miss deadlines, sometimes they put in things wrong, and we end up with an overpayment.
So the system in general would basically help to alleviate or prevent the late payouts of, teacher,
A modernized system with modernized processes is going to reduce the amount of time that it takes to process payroll, and allow us to be able to resolve
Thank you.
those issues.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I know you guys have lots of other questions, and how many more pages do we have for your?
Where are you?
How many more?
Shall
Yeah,
I continue on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Priority 29.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Priority 29 adds funds for the independent verification and validation, the IVNV effort for the Enterprise Financial System Modernization Project. It's the effort that helps ensure that the projects stay on track. The big IT modernization projects stay on track. That's for $1 million. Priority 30 adds funds for the Microsoft 365 Cloud Data Backup and Disaster Recovery Solution. While Microsoft 365 offers some level of data redundancy and recovery, its built-in backup options are limited, so this helps to complement that. Priority 31 adds funds and 1 permanent FTE for a data and AI equity manager. This new position is authorized by Act 203 at FLH 2024 to address language barriers and to ensure equitable access of information and assistance for all residents, especially with those with limited English proficiency. Priority 32 adds funds to establish a data AI office and AI risk management tools and geospatial license for 1.6 million. Included in this are 4 different types of tools, data governance, data
Why do we have
sharing.
to establish a new office? Why can't an existing office just take on these responsibilities?
Actually, it's not really an office within ETS formally establishing. We're just trying to build the tools within the Office of Enterprise Technology Services versus establishing a new office. Our priority, that's what we named it. It's probably not named very well. It's really to use the current structure that we have within ETS. Our Chief Data Officer included will be leading the effort to build infrastructure that enables projects across departments to share information securely and effectively,
With regards to AI.
including AI.
Including
Yes, yes. So currently, one of the big efforts that we're working on is establishing policies that help the departments govern how their employees use data and use AI. All the departments want to use AI to help them solve their problems. And so we want to make sure that we provide guidelines and are able to enforce that as effectively as possible.
So the budget, the 1.6 million is a contract out for services or what, how are you planning to
It's a
use it?
combination of 2 things. One is it actually includes 4 different tools. So we're going to be purchasing the tools and the software. And we're also going to be contracting out for skill sets to help us manage those tools and implement those tools.
Good question, Chair. So the 1.6 is just DAG's share among the different departments?
Or is it the whole cost?
Serve everybody.
It's the overall cost.
Overall
And
cost.
to recoup some of those costs with some of the partners that we're working with across the department.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there won't be any duplication of this in other budget requests.
From
I
departments.
can't speak for the other departments, but hopefully.
Well,
the-
they shouldn't.
Yeah, it shouldn't
They shouldn't be if
the
it's supposed to
goal is
be.
yes, to streamline this through the Office of Enterprise Technology Services.
Is this part of the consolidation effort that we have, that all the departments are still working with you on that?
Yes,
So they will be informed and be part of this effort?
yes, and we share this part of this proposal was developed to the data task force that has members of different departments on the task force to make sure that there is buy-in and readiness for us to, purchase the tools, implement the tools and use the tools across the departments. So they're actually the departments are asking for help from the central IT office to help them, enable them to share data across the system, which is happening on a more manual way now.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I still think there has to be a look at how IT is structured.
Mhm.
And there was some discussion in the past where it would be more similar to the Attorney General's office, where all the IT would be consolidated and then reassigned to departments so that there was more. Then that way, and I think this happened during COVID, where people were gone. If everyone were consolidated, then you could redeploy people to different departments if someone's out
Right.
or if something close. Right now, that's not the case. It's still fragmented.
It is fragmented, but one of the things that we accomplished this past year, Chair, and was submitted to the legislature, which is our state IT strategic plan. The state IT strategic plan is updated once every 4 years. And this past year, we worked very closely with the department leadership, talking to both the directors and the deputies, as well as their IT directors, to have really honest conversations about how can we develop a meaningful state IT strategy that is implementable not only
Yeah.
by ETS.
No, I
with
get
the
that, but going back
departments.
to Senator Kim's point about, hearing the same thing over and over,
Mhm.
and if you keep everything the same, you're gonna get the same.
Mhm.
And so that's where I think if it was, at least in that respect, having all the IT consolidated and then reassigned, and then you could deploy, like the Attorney General does. I mean, I think that's something that needs to be
We'll,
looked
we'll
at.
definitely look into that more. Part of our priority is to really streamline the enterprise licenses that we host, like Microsoft and like Adobe, and expand that out so that we make it easier for the departments.
Yeah,
to-
but going
do
back to
that.
what we said, if one department says, well, I'm not participating,
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna do that.
Especially with the
That
Microsoft.
And
shouldn't
then
be
so-
allowed.
And so now what?
That shouldn't be allowed.
Or several departments, well, I'm not gonna do that. See, so you're smiling because you know that that's the problem.
That is a problem.
Okay, so what you're gonna do about it? That's why we have to restructure and figure out a way how that's not a problem anymore.
Right.
Right.
IT
Yes.
needs to be the super user.
I'm sorry, one more time.
IT needs to be the super user.
Yes.
Right.
You know, the Attorney General's office is mainly exempt positions. So I don't know, you know, I think that
Salary.
Mhm.
anyway, those are things I think you need to
Yes,
think
we're-
about.
We are seriously looking at that. Thank you.
CCA, same thing.
Anyway, okay,
Okay, and I'm going to move on. Happy to take more questions, but I'll move on to priority 35. This adds funds for the government private hybrid cloud. ETS is seeking additional funds, $400,000 to continue the expansion of the government private cloud to the public cloud to greatly reduce our current reliance on state maintained physical hardware. So this is our effort to really move older infrastructure to newer infrastructure for sustainability. Priority 37 adds funds for website accessibility and training program for 200,000. ETS is seeking funding for an enterprise success plan with partner to provide a statewide accessibility training schedule, accessibility maturity assessments, manual accessibility testing, and so on. And priority 38 adds funds for the digitization of control and client services binders. So it's just one of many efforts to digitize the current old paper that we have that contains very valuable information. And this is located within the basement of the Kalani Moku building as part of our mainframe support.
so this is continuing or beginning?
This is beginning.
So why do you think it's taking, what took so long to get started?
I can't answer that question. I
Because
don't
we've
know
been
why.
talking about digitizing quite a bit of things for a
Yeah.
while, and
Previous, yeah.
This,
I can't
this
believe
is one of those
this is-
areas, I think, Chair, that we, identified during this last cycle that
Mhm.
needs to be addressed. And so we're putting that request forward. And part of it is, if I recall the request properly, we have, like as an example, our financial management system, right? The existing famous, right? How do we, capture some of those operating manuals, right? And make sure that we never lose them potentially. Even though we're going to replace the system, we still need to, kind of have that in a place that's never going to be, subject to water.
Yeah, I'm just
damage
surprised that
or
some of
stuff.
this is only now starting.
But-
Can I follow up on that? So the people that's working on IT stuff now, I know you're new, but
Yes.
what was it in place when you got there? I mean, people were doing digitization?
Well, we currently have a FTE shortage of over 25%, about 25%. And so the people that are working on the mainframe and working on the legacy systems are there to really support the critical infrastructure. We just did not have the opportunity for a concerted digitization effort, which is what we're asking for here because it is important infrastructure. And it's one of my priorities to make sure that we migrate off of our legacy systems and migrate out of the basement. And this is part of the effort to do that.
This is contract though, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, and I understand that, but even though you're new and maybe the rector's new, I mean, we have people in this room who has been working on these stuff for years. So they're not new. So it's like, what are we doing? So just because the leaders are new, what's been going on? So I think that needs to be raised and discussed, right?
Yeah.
But Kalani Moku, I mean, even the fact that you're still at the basement of Kalani Moku, I mean, why are we still talking about that? Because we all know that's not the best place. It
Yes.
floods.
Yes.
Mhm. Also,
That is why
especially-
one of the priorities is to decommission.
What is that?
the-
Priority 1,000, what?
Actually,
It's one now.
and there's also some funding in our CIP request that's going to help us with rearranging some of the space and maximizing the space at Kalani Moku, which would include some of the
I
stuff
don't
that
know if
she's
that's
talking
even the
about.
right place though.
Well, I don't think the basement is the right place. And so what's interesting about Kalani Moku, Chair, is that on the fourth floor, we've got a relatively large, what we call swing or surge space, where if we need to move departments out or operations out of other places to renovate their space, we can put them there temporarily. It's on the fourth floor of our building. You're welcome to come take a look at it anytime. But you know, I asked our team, I said, why are we saving prime space on the fourth floor for surge or, you know, swing space when we need it? When we have an entire operation.
So you want to give the other departments the basement?
No, well,
So they can be there
temporarily, right? So that when they move in there, they're going to want to go back.
Yeah.
And not, right, constantly, you know, live there forever, right, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So, but the idea, to your point, Chair, is, you know, ETS doesn't belong in the basement. They belong.
And you have
You know.
you have what, everybody back? Because when we took a tour several years ago,
Back to back.
it was almost empty.
Yeah, it's a hybrid model. When I first started, it was 2 days in and 3 days work out of the office. And now it's 3 days in and work 2 days out of the office. So one of my priorities is to make sure, especially coming out of COVID, to make sure that the staff is connected, you know, is working well together so that we may achieve all of the priorities that we have here.
But Keith, you know, that idea about rearranging the entire building and
Yeah.
looking at the agencies makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I've walked into several offices that have nice door going in and empty lobby, beautiful lobbies, and then you look for the staff and they're in the back.
Yeah.
Waste of space. So that's a good idea. Rearranging all the agencies, they have no authority to say no, but you know, that's something to look
But
at.
part of that is supposed to be reducing the space because of hoteling
Exactly.
though. So I'm not sure if you're doing that, because when we went there though, I mean, the basement is quite large and you
Yeah.
can see it was just like this big room, and then there was conference room, almost convention hall looking room,
Right,
and it was almost empty.
right.
With everyone stuffed animals on their desk and all of that kind of stuff. A plant here and there.
So Chair, to your
Make it a little
point,
more presentable.
that's exactly what we're talking about
Yeah.
as it relates to the redevelopment of the space on the fourth floor, is to make it an example of what is possible with new modern architecture and new modern design that would accommodate and take advantage of the hybrid working environment that is more prominent and prevalent in our society today. So
So just related to that, because we're looking at reconfiguring and looking at saving space, the state. So
I don't know if we are yet,
so
because I haven't really heard that.
when we had a bill saying that you're going to reduce the number of
by 10%,
units being by.
And have we achieved that?
yes,
So
according to our most
looking
recent
at-
report that we
looking
submitted.
at remote work and your rules on how many square feet the person has, maybe you need to look at that as well as looking at your rules
Mhm.
on space and allocation of space
Yep.
if you're doing remote.
And not only that,
But if we reduce by 10%, why do we still have quite a bit of?
because we just added more departments and more operations. And so, you know, from that point in time was the base, right? That we had to reduce it by. So, but we got more staff. We got
There has to be some
law enforcement,
Yeah.
right? We added law enforcement, which is a huge addition, right, in terms of space needs. But, you know, if I can just really quick, Chair, you know, one of the things that we're also looking at is what makes sense to be near each other, right? And in the past, it's always been, well, DLNR should only be with DLNR and DLIR should be over there and DOA should be over there, and they shouldn't be in the same sort of shared space. Well, guess what? We've been talking about things like, hey, how can we take some of those operations out of, as an example, Kalani Moku, DLNR operations, maybe move them to another location, HPU, Kaneohe, right? That property.
Yeah.
Free up some space. Right, wherever, right? But free up some space, and maybe DOH should move their vital records operations into Kalani Moku. Because when you think about proximity, vital records, people that are going to vital records often are going to bureau conveyance. So why not take that approach, right? Also, right? And it's kind of like a service center approach.
Would your ask for that building be able to accommodate that?
I think so.
And
Yeah.
this would help if we decide to abandon ship on this capital and have to move temporarily.
You know, that's part of it too, right? In our CIP request, there is some planning monies to talk about the significant work that needs to be done in this building that is going to require that we shut it down for a period of time, move all the tenants out. Where do we put them?
In the basement, you said.
Yeah.
The new Department of Health. Across the street.
Yeah, and we've got a canal, the property at Kinau Hale is well beyond its useful life and needs to be redeveloped. So a lot of potential there as well.
Okay, we have about 20 more minutes before
Yes,
we
sir.
have corrections. So
Okay.
we gotta get through this.
Yep. Thank you. Thank
Oh, you keep going. Oh,
She's done. Yeah, she's done.
Questions too.
No, but no, we gotta keep getting through this list though.
We're almost done. We're almost there. Okay, so
You keep talking about the graveyards and all of that. That's why focus on the stuff you really want to focus on.
Talking about maintenance for neighbor.
Okay.
we're almost there. Okay. Priority number 41 is the voting system contract and some additional funds to help support operations. And the Chief Elections Officer, Scott Nago, is here to talk about if there's any questions about the request.
I have a question about.
Okay, so Scott?
Yeah, I have a question relating to elections.
About this budget item? No.
It may be related. Yeah, depends how the answer
Okay,
is.
why don't you explain what this is first then?
So this is our request for a voting system contract. So we do lease a voting system. This is the full cost, but we do share that cost 50-50 with the counties. But we need the full funding upfront before we enter into it. It also includes funding for the digital voter guide, which was passed by the legislature, I believe, last session. Requires us to produce a digital voter guide as well as join the Electronic Registration Information Center, ERIC, which is a national registration data sharing amongst states.
So, Mr. Nago, first of all, I want to thank you and appreciate your employees, especially on election night, for the extended hours that they worked at Kapolei. So in terms of seeing what you've seen, right, with the long lines, does the Office of Elections and working with the different county of elections have a plan to sort of address that, to possibly offer more voting or polling, voting places?
So the voter service centers, which are established on election day, are under the jurisdiction of each individual county.
Okay.
The state is responsible for voter education, counting of the ballots.
So it'd be the county to
The
come up
county
with
is
the
the-
funding for that if they want to expand locations.
Yes,
Okay.
well, it's a 50-50 sharing cost. So we pay 50, they can open up as many service centers, state is on the hook for 50%.
Okay, thank you.
As a state elections office, I mean, it's great that you want to do all this, voter information and stuff. Can't we mandate that they have more centers? I mean, I have a bill right now to have more voting centers.
Yeah, it's, I believe you did. There was a push to mandate more voter service centers previously, but I don't know, for some reason it didn't pass.
I know, but you have that ability, right? We have that
No.
ability.
The legislature has that,
Right,
yes.
but through
No,
the
so
elections office.
He's saying he can if the bill passes.
Yeah, so the legislature would mandate the number of voter service, a
Right.
minimum number of voter service
Yeah,
centers.
but
The counties would have to.
The question he asked you is, you should be leading this, so are you gonna recommend? I mean, you're gonna wait till we come up with how many that we might need? Shouldn't that be something to look
I
at?
mean, that
and
is
to-
something based on the lines we are already looking at to see how we can alleviate the lines. One of the things that the clerk is looking at is opening up more centers, or clerks are looking at is opening up more centers. But the issue really is on election day, and it becomes a management issue or a personnel issue on their part. If you have a lot of voter service centers on election day, you're really spreading your capacity. thinner.
Understand, but you're leaving it up to lay people who I'm saying, okay, maybe we need 3 more. I don't know, what is 3 the magic number? But you folks are the ones should be telling us, you know what, we've looked at the situation, and perhaps if we did have, 3 more or 4 more at the strategic areas, that we could alleviate that. I don't know, but if you guys aren't going to lead and tell us, we're going to dream it up, and we don't know if it's going to work.
We need you guys to lead it, because obviously that's going to be a budget adjustment to fund these new voters, our share of the new voter center
Yeah.
services. So in order to make a pragmatic decision between addressing voter needs and costs, we need you to kind of.
Exactly.
Let me ask this. Has the county elections administrator for City and County of Honolulu, have they come up with a suggestion in working with you?
So they're still looking to see what they can do to for 2026.
Six.
I know in 2024, they did open up, well, since 2020, when the last time we had long lines, they did open up more voter service centers, such as the Wahiwa location, the Kaneohe location.
Yeah, but it wasn't open during election day.
Yeah, and that was a,
Yeah.
that
That's
was a
kind of
decision of
awkward.
their part.
Yeah, because they had it open the week, but not election day.
Correct, and that was.
Because I
a
think that
decision-
would have helped. If they just kept the Wahiwa one open, then they would have had 3 options.
Correct.
So, on election day, what I was told by the county was that they were trying to get people to, come out and run those, precincts. Have you guys ever had the conversation on, whether it was a cost issue with
No, it's not a cost issue. It's
just that they don't like
a
run
volunteer. Yeah,
Volunteer.
it's a volunteer issue because a lot of them, for example, in the county of Maui, they did face a lot of bad behavior per se, where they would have to take the wrath of a lot of voters.
So what is the solution?
Mail in your ballot.
Well, I know that's what I'm saying in a line, but I wanna know what
That's
is
the solution. Mail it
do
in.
Elon Musk thing and pay them for come or like, you know what I mean? So you guys have to deal with that. I mean, well,
I think
The
that,
the
county-
long
the
lines.
county-
I think that's a good idea if a bill surfaces and the discussions will then be before you to make some suggestions. Working with the clerks on each island, I think is important prior to the bill surfacing for discussion. Now, another thought is, perhaps when you look at the different districts in the communities, I mean, Oahu, you can't compare Oahu to Big Island or Kauai where, there's more density on Oahu. Now, is there a possibility of even providing those open new voting areas that would probably be, and it depends on you and the clerks, to say that these districts will only be available for voting like the day before the election. So if they don't want to go to and travel to another spot, they know they have to vote on the day before the election. So those offices will be closed. Then you know that people will probably say, I want to vote, but we have a deadline. And then do the normal open election day, wherever but that's something that you can control, I guess. The state can control its voting process. So close all of those district offices prior to the election day. Otherwise, we're gonna face the same issue we did on Oahu this year. But if that's a possibility, but that's,
but isn't
if
there
a
a-
bill is gonna surface, the
Who do you report
discussions
to
will
though?
hold
Don't
them.
you have the 3 people?
The commission?
Yeah.
There's an elections commission.
Yeah, so aren't they discussing this?
They are, but the statutory responsibility of voter service centers and in-person voting it's the clerks. It's the
Yeah,
county.
it's the
No,
counties.
but going back to some of the points brought up, is the commission at least looking at the stats to see, okay, where are most of these people coming from? So that's where we might, they should be looking at that on how
Yeah.
they can improve voter services
But
but it
it's
should be the commission.
correct, but it's up to the counties to implement that.
That's fine, but somebody still should be discussing it.
Yeah, and that's something we are also looking at to see how we can alleviate those kinds of lines.
So do you have the stats to say, okay, for Kapolei, majority of the late voters were from where?
So it's all, so on Oahu, it's all the leeward side, and then the Oahu,
west side.
the Honolulu side was there's like mostly from the town area.
Okay, so Central Oahu and North Shore mailed in their ballot.
Not necessarily.
Is that what
but
you're saying?
We're seeing on election day, it was mainly the areas around the voter service centers, an approximation of the voter service center. But the lines that you saw were mainly specific to election day. There wasn't that type of line prior to election day. But that was a specific.
But the voter center was open, well, Honolulu Hale was open for a couple of weeks.
For 10 days, yes.
The cost for those
People
that
don't-
works at the individual voting areas, it's borne by the counties.
Yes,
Yeah.
but they charge us back. It's a cost sharing.
It's cost sharing,
So they would charge us back 50%.
understanding. And for Big Island, I do know it was the personnel management to work at the different individual communities. And that's why they decided to not open up certain areas. You know,
Yeah.
they get paid, but you can find workers.
Yeah,
Volunteers,
I don't
sort
know
of.
what the issue particularly on the Big Island was.
But it's all over.
Okay, we should just have a bill.
Yeah.
And then you can have this discussion, because this is like a policy discussion, it's all hypotheticals, and really we should just be sticking to the budget.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, what else you got?
That's it.
That's
Okay.
Okay, next.
All right, next up, we have our Campaign Spending Commission Executive Director, Kristen Izumi Nitao, to talk about her requests. Kristen?
Hi, good morning. Kristen, Izumi Nitao,
afternoon.
Executive Director. As you know, our request is for 2 more positions, an elections assistant and an investigator, as well as a appropriation to build a new electronic filing system. Also at issue is our trust fund, which we are asking that the amount be a recurring ceiling and at 700,000, because as you all know, we never know what kind of public funding, what kind of candidates will qualify for a public funding that we'd have to match within a very designated brief period of time. So that is our request. Per your budget, you can see that our request, we were very fortunate, was approved, except for the extra $1 million we had hoped for to build the electronic filing system.
That's the 1.1.
Correct. It was supposed to be 2 million. As a one-time cost to build it for 1 year, and then a recurring 200,000 subscription cost to deal with maintenance and support. So if it is reduced to 1 million, we have talked to the pre-approved vendor. And of course, we are in communication with ETS. So this is not done in a vacuum. But there are certain features that we will not be able to build with a reduction of 1 million, but we will certainly ask for that money in a supplemental budget year so that we can build the full system.
Okay, what are the differences?
The differences between the
The
present system and
So what do we get if we, I mean, you don't have to answer it now. You can send us
sure.
send it in writing.
You mean the difference between the 1 million and the 2? I can tell you
Yeah.
right now, just certain features would be that you would not be able to do data migration. You wouldn't be able to use the old system. You'd only have to build, we'd have to build with just you're going to file the report. And I think realistically, if we don't get the money till, let's just say 2020, well, I don't think we'll have the system by 2026 election, because it's we have elections in every even numbered year. So in 2028 is when you'd have this built. But you would not be able to do data migration. In other words, you couldn't rely on your prior reports for all your contributors and your expenditures, your database. We couldn't be able to migrate that. It'd be a fresh start from that date. You also, we probably would have to take out the public funding piece. So any public funder would have to put their reports on a different system. So we have certain things that we'd have to do if we don't get the full 2 million. So that we can build at least, because we want at least something to start building it. I think we were really very pleasantly surprised to get it. A part of our strategic plan is to look at technological advances. So our commission looked at it and wanted to use a system that other campaign finance jurisdictions have used that are more efficient and can take into consideration modern tools. So,
But if it's not going to be ready for till the 2028 election, do you need the full 2 million now?
we look the first.
Not what you want,
Sure.
what you need.
The 2
Because then if you
million.
can get the 1 million now and then the 1 million for 27, that still gives you enough time for 28.
So the 2 million in a supplemental budget
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
we could do that, but I just wanted to be very clear what we're building, because I didn't want any
No, yes, but if the
miscommunication.
goal is for 2028, and if the governor decides to give you the rest of the requests next year,
Yeah.
then that would still complete what you're trying to accomplish.
Possibly, yes. I'm just trying to, you're right. I don't have all the answers right now because we are trying to figure out what we could build, because of course we're going to build it. We want to build it the right way. But we could always do it. But again, if we don't get the money, then I don't know where, or less even than that. I don't know what we're gonna end up building.
What's your election fund as of?
2.2 almost 2,280,000.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for campaign spending?
Quick question. If you got the whole two this year, could you meet 26 or no, because you're still feeling your way? 28 is pretty much.
Oh,
the soonest
cannot.
it would happen.
Yeah, we'd have to.
Cannot. Yeah,
What
because
year-
the fiscal year doesn't begin.
Exactly, that's
So
what it is.
July
That's what it is.
1st. The election is,
That's what
I
it
mean, the
is.
election is August, so there's no way.
If you
So-
got $2.5 million, you can't use it. That's in special funds.
Yeah,
If you
that-
guys came in last year and we funded, then maybe, but then
yeah,
the timing doesn't
the
work.
timing doesn't work,
Yeah.
right? Right.
And these are general fund. This is a general fund request.
The trust funds.
No, the trust, we're talking about the trust fund.
Yeah, the trust funds are at 2 point, what I had
Yeah,
mentioned
you can't
to
use the money.
We could, but as you probably, we have a public funding bill, partial public funding bill we submitted, which is gonna offer 2-for-1 match. So we expect there to be some more interest in a public funding program and have the money hopefully to cover it. So if we use that money to build this, we're not gonna have money.
If it's approved by this legislature.
Correct, absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Okay,
So what do we get out of this new system?
So what are you gonna get on the new system? Well, you'll be able to, right now, from what I understand is we obviously want to build so that, with some modernization. Right now, it would require a full rewrite with your present system to be able to file your report on a mobile phone. So you can't file your report on a mobile phone. You can do entry, but you can't file it on a mobile phone. We also would permit you to do a better, a better data dump, if you will, of your contributions and expenditures from a spreadsheet, which you can't do right now. So it's a more efficient, tool for users to use. We would have, with the 2-factor authentication on it. So a little better protection. And if you recall, we have to build a system that candidates can use, non-candidate committees can use, the public can use. So it has to cover so many different sectors. But we're hoping that this is a system that 4 other jurisdictions have been using. We've been meeting with the person who's designed it so that it can meet your needs. And I mean, we're doing this because you've got people like myself and Tony Baldemero and Gary Cam who know the users, and we're all somewhat retirement eligible. So this really is to take into consideration building for the future, knowing you guys as users, what you need, what you want, knowing the public, and trying to take that into consideration rather than hitting a D-Day where everything is not going to be able, is not.
So you can't use the same system that ethics uses.
Well, ethics is not required. We have a mandatory electronic filing and a mandatory electronic searchable database.
They do too.
Some of their stuff may exist, if I recall, in a PDF format, so it's not as searchable.
But I'm saying, so we're doing a whole different system rather than trying to synchronize what we're trying to use.
The CIO.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not having all.
But it's a totally different system though. There's no integration. It's not
No,
the
but-
same interface
With who, with ethics?
ethics, right?
No,
But the question is if we're going to upgrade, is there some semblance of, coordination amongst all of our systems?
Yeah.
Because what it seems like is we're starting to we're going to upgrade. I'm going to do this one system. We're going to upgrade and we're going to do another system, and they're all different, right?
The
And it
design,
just
you
doesn't
said
make
other
sense at a
states have
certain
done
point.
this. Other
There's-
municipalities have.
So ethics, as you know, is a legislative branch entity with its own set of laws. And while we may intersect with some of the same stakeholders, they are very different. But we consider them a sister agency, so we do consult with each other, but their needs are very different than our needs.
The
And-
designer that you're talking about, that
Yes.
did other systems
Yes,
in other locations.
Yes.
Did they do any kind of collaboration with other
with ethics,
offices? Yeah. or-
not that I'm aware of, but I can certainly check that.
Okay. Well, I think the bottom line is just we should have some level, because starting from scratch really doesn't make sense either, right? Like we should look what we have and then start building upon it.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think we're starting from scratch though, which is why we would use this vendor. But if we don't have the full amount, we cannot. The data migration from all the reports filed in the past cannot happen because that's another cost to it. We have to, and of course, if that becomes a priority, we can look at another cost. But, you know, it's really trying to build one system where the non-candidate committee system can know what the candidate committee systems are doing because you share some of the same contributions, but we may have to only build for the candidates.
Well, I think it's to me, it's a larger ETS question, right? Like, how are we doing upgrades?
Sure.
Right. And I think to me there, and I think I talked to the CIO about this who's incoming. I think there needs to be some type of plan that we are kind of like, oh, it kind of makes sense on how we're upgrading. But right now, I think what's kind of troubling is everyone's doing it in silos.
No,
So I think that's the problem.
Okay, that goes back to my AG example.
Right. No, yeah.
No, we don't have any intention of doing this in a silo. We will have conversations with them because certainly we have a relationship, we have a partnership with them. We're not going to do it in a silo. We want to be meaningful with our money. When I met with them, ETS has they take care of all of the state. We are just such a micro environment, right, of our needs that service, candidates and their non-candidate committees, that our needs are just a little bit, maybe, they do overlap, and I will continue to.
But I would argue that everyone's going to say that about their own system, right? It's very unique. It's services who we service, right? And so I think we just need to think deeper about our technology upgrade. It's not to you. I think it's more towards our CIO. It's more towards Director of DAGs that we got to be thinking a little deeper about those things.
I can completely appreciate that sentiment, and we are having conversations. In fact, we are meeting with some of them on Thursday. So the dialogue will continue.
But another opinion is keep it separate. Because with cyber attacks, you don't want to combine with another agency. And if there's a cyber attack, then everybody else will get into our system. I think campaign spending is so different from ethics. You don't want anybody from ethics getting involved with campaign spending.
What kind of training do you do for the filing?
What kind of training do we do for the filing?
You have training?
Currently?
Yeah, do you have training?
Yes, we do training. We do in-person training. We've done online training. We have cyber learning videos that are bite-sized, that are 1 minute to 5 minutes long, depending on what function you want. We have guidebooks, and of course you can call
So
us.
for a lot of the new candidates, how often do they come in for the training?
Oh, they don't come. Some do,
See,
some do.
'cause-
And there's always 150 new candidates.
Yeah.
And of course, with that comes new people. So
Yeah, because for the average person who's just getting into it, then, a lot of these laws are complicated.
Absolutely.
And I feel like, unfortunately, new candidates who have a harder time getting volunteers, the treasurer, they don't know how to maneuver. So
Sure.
I just hope that kind of assistance, because once you get a fine and then now you're in the paper, but it's just all this guy was trying to do was run for office, and his friend from high school was his treasurer, and they didn't know all the technicalities.
Sure.
I'm very surprised though that, the classes that you provide to me is absolute necessary for candidates. They want to run for office, and that should be part of a rule when you apply to run as a candidate, that you must go to these classes. I'm surprised that there's some that they don't. No, really.
Mandatory.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay, we're getting into corrections time.
Yeah. Sorry.
Budget question on campaign spending.
Okay.
No, wait, on campaign spending?
No.
Okay, well, let's move on until we get,
Thank you.
because we gotta get through this
Thanks.
list. We gotta get through this list.
There was
Wait,
a big,
Lorraine, we gotta get through this list.
Sorry, Chair.
Okay,
Okay, so next up,
proceed.
911 board. A call for the Executive Director, Royce Murakami, to talk about his request for a ceiling increase.
So this kind of goes off of what we talked with Senator McKelvey last year about the Hoover. So we are asking for an increase of 5 million to our spending ceiling permanently. We previously came in for a temporary ceiling increase 2 years ago. This is mainly due to just increases in maintenance and costs and a lot of equipment refreshes that we were expecting in 2026.
Okay, questions? Okay, next.
Okay, next up, we have our State Foundation on Culture and Arts. State Executive Director Karen Ewald to talk about her requests.
Hello, good morning, good noon. Karen Ewald with the State Foundation on Culture and the Arts, Executive Director. We are requesting as well as ceiling increase recurring for the Works of Art Special Fund. We currently have a cash balance of 12 million, and we'd like to have greater access to the fund balance so that we could better serve the community through new construction projects, arts education, and more neighbor island activation.
Questions?
Thanks, Karen. Okay, and the next two items are State Procurement Office. We do have Management Analyst Jacob Chang here to talk about those two items. So, Jacob.
Hi, Happy New Year, everybody. So we're looking to increase the fringe benefit for the office. Last couple of years, we've actually seen a bit of a shortfall, and we had to reallocate it from other areas of that section. And then we're also looking to reclassify two positions within the office to kind of recognize what they do. These funds are special funds as well. We do believe that they can support themselves. I think in the last 5 years, they've had a profit of like $1.1 million or something like that. So it's
okay. Questions?
Real quick one. On the one for the continuing the act that we passed for the small business coordinator, have we seen any increase in contracts for procurement of actual small business? We've been doing it for a couple of years.
Where we're at right now is that we've been able to, we have our database, our small business database. And we actually are in the process of hiring a small business coordinator. They actually just accepted our conditional offer the end of last year, like the 27th of the last month. So we will be moving, once they come on board, we will be moving toward that. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, great. Is that the end?
One more item, and last item is priority number 48, which is the reduction of 5 permanent FTEs. These are positions that were set for, being deleted per BNF's requirement of positions that are had been vacant for 4 years or more. This was part of my opening conversation and discussion about the returning 4 of those 5 so that we can get them filled.
Can I question that? Okay, so I understand too, you're putting the new pay scale for the engineers and architects, correct? You said that in the opening.
Mm-hmm.
But how many of these positions you hire consultants for?
How many?
I mean, a lot of the projects are being parceled out with consultants. So the engineering, the architect work is being done by consultants. So we're carrying people, engineers, architects to do project management? I mean, we have that problem at the airports as well. Every place we have problems because they don't feel comfortable in doing the work themselves. So we consult it out. And yet we have this payroll and we're wondering what all of these people are doing.
I think it's a great question, and I think our administrator can go ahead and provide you some insight on that as well.
Yeah, hi, Gordon Wood. Yeah, we do hire architects and engineers in-house, and they manage projects for us with our outside consultants. Okay.
So why are we hiring?
Outside consultants actually do the design and so forth of the projects. Our architects and engineers in-house speak with them at a peer level and manage those projects. Now, our architects and engineers on average are managing about more than 40 projects each. Okay, if we ask them to do in-house design, we would have to cut that down to probably 2 projects each.
Okay, but we're paying for engineering levels, and we've talked about this in the past, that why aren't we hiring and getting people that do project management? Because it costs a lot less.
Project management can cost less, okay. However, you need somebody who is conversant with the issues that the architects and engineers, the consultants are dealing with, who knows how to manage the project through the permitting process and so forth, and who knows how to evaluate the work of the consultants to make sure that the state is getting the value that we're paying for.
At the level of a licensed engineer.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
I'm gonna bring up the Hawaiian Airlines maintenance facility, of which we hired consultants, paid all this money out, and there were like hundreds of issues and problems that went on that the consultants said pay, and the consultant managers who are architects and engineers agreed, and we did all this to find out all these problems. So my whole thing is that we're having these people with with degrees and so forth, and they're all knowledgeable, and yet they just oversee and they don't question anything. So again, I'm wondering, we're spending all this money on consultants. So why are we having to have a whole cadre of engineers and architects if they're not actually doing the work? I can see overseeing, but again, and that's something that needs to really be looked at because we rely too much on consultants. Too much, and there's no transparency. And the project managers, when they're afraid, they don't want to do the work. So with the manager, let them be responsible if something goes wrong. But the overseeing, nothing happens to them. They just moved on to the next project, like the maintenance facility at Hawaiian Air.
Okay, well, the maintenance facility at Hawaiian Air was held by a different agency.
Oh, I'm bringing it as a point because I'm sure that's happened with you guys too.
Okay. In fact, I'm saying, I understand what you're talking about and the lessons that we can learn from debacles like that. Okay. And in fact, over the last few years, in fact, the last year, we have been looking and actually moving to downgrade some of our positions, our engineer and architect positions, so that we can hire at a lower level.
But that's not what I'm hearing from your director. He's asking us to keep the positions. He's asking us to.
This gets rid of 5, right?
Raise the.
Okay, yeah, we have 4 of our engineer positions that are on the chopping block at this point. And what Keith is asking for is for us to keep those off the chopping block for a year. Now, one of those positions is going to be filled as of February 1st. Okay, we have gotten an applicant.
Of the 5 that's on this.
One of the 4 engineers.
No, but right here, if you look at line 48, it reduces by 5.
Yes, right. And,
reduce 5 permanent FTE and add funds for consultant services.
Yes, thank you. The 5th position is not an engineer. It is a contracts assistant too. Okay.
So you're asking for something different than what this line is showing?
No, he's answering for that. He's just saying that one of them is not an engineer. 4 is engineers.
Yeah, we have 4 engineers, 1 non-engineer. Okay, and so that's the 5, and one of the 4 engineers.
Okay, I guess the point I'm trying to make is you're getting rid of the 5, and in lieu of the 5, you're going to do consultants.
We would have had to, right, if we lost those resources. And that was part of the reason why we asked for that additional funding. But if we're able to keep those positions, we wouldn't need that additional funding to hire consultants.
But you're still going to hire consultants.
Well,
because
I mean,
you're having them do project management work. You're not having them do the actual engineering work, right?
Okay. Internally, we have our engineers do the internal project management stuff. Now, if we lose positions, we still have to maintain the capacity to manage the projects. Okay. And so we would have to bring in more consultants as our
just hire project
managers, our
managers.
internal management capability.
Hire project managers.
Now, even if we bring in the outside consultants, we're going to have to maintain oversight on those outside consultants who are maintaining or who are doing the project management. And so it's a very inefficient way of attacking that problem. Okay, so we did ask for 1.375 for this year if those 4 positions are eliminated. If those 4 positions are kept on for a year, we don't need the 1.375.
Yep. Okay, so here it says 1,057,000.
Do you have consultants that
Because
are
there's a reason for that.
do you have consultants that are
This is what's on the books, though.
housed in your offices? Consultants that have a desk in your office or
No.
a house in your office? None,
None.
right? Okay, because airports had 5 and I understand DOE has some.
Yeah, we talk about lessons learned. We initially came in with the 1.375 that was reduced by BNF to the 1.057.
Okay.
Can I ask your engineers, your area of coverage are only to the buildings that is under DAGs? On the engineering side?
We do planning, design and construction for buildings for DAGs, as well as a number of user agencies.
Okay, because the other agencies like DLNR, DOA, they have their own engineering staffs.
DLNR has its own engineering staff.
But separate from you,
when
right?
DLNR has a building project to do, we will do that project for DLNR.
Oh, okay.
Their engineers work on it.
Well, they're losing, a couple, so I'm just concerned that there's you know.
Senator Elefante.
Yeah, just one question on, you said the pay scale went up for the engineer 5. What's the difference in pay scale that it went up?
It's about a 20% plus difference.
Okay.
So it really helped us. We've been able to bring aboard a whole bunch of people. Well, for us, a whole bunch of people.
Thank you.
This year, taking advantage.
What is that in a salary number?
That's right now, I think an engineer 5 starts at 102,300, and it used to be it was either the high 70s or the low 80s.
Actually got the schedule.
Have to be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, we have great benefits, but
Yeah.
the salary.
Okay, I know members have lots of questions, so I'm just gonna lay out what the time. We're gonna need at least 15 minutes so that we can set up for corrections. Corrections was supposed to start at 12:30. So if we can just, be precise with your question, not too many comments, because we don't have a bill in front of us. And then you had a question?
Yes, this has to do with the Big Island when WAM, and thanks for appearing at WAM's visit to the Big Island. We had issues because of the difference with DOE's management and DAGs. Understanding that DAGs do all of the buildings for DOE on the neighbor islands. Now, the issue that was raised by you, and I'm glad you brought it up, was that because we had one manager for DAGs that covered East Hawaii and West Hawaii.
Correct.
Has that been settled?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
Thanks to this body, you supported us in that effort, right? To have 2 district offices on Hawaii Island.
Okay. So the responsibility for all the facilities for East Hawaii is separate from West Hawaii.
Yes.
We don't have to have somebody traveling for a day and you have a meeting for half an hour and you're traveling for 4 hours.
That's right.
Okay, that's great. Now, with regards to the facilities portion of the buildings, because that's the issue we run into, do we go with DOE or we go with DAGs, like the issue I brought up about a building that's almost going to collapse for years that was not addressed, and we have to fund now a new building, C building at Waikiki Intermediate. The foundation is cracked. We got water leaks, but has not been addressed for many, many years until I returned as the senator for the district 2 years ago. So now we are dealing with you folks then.
To a certain extent, because we have the service level agreement that's in place that
All right.
helps guide us in terms of what we do.
With facilities for schools on the Big Island.
Well, it depends on what type of project we're talking about.
Okay,
If it's a repair,
buildings.
then that would be DOE.
Okay.
Yep. Because we do repair maintenance. So we send our plumbers, carpenters, electricians
So
out.
if a building is collapsing in one classroom,
Yep,
like building C, that's going to,
DOE.
yeah. If there's an
100%.
earthquake, that entire science building is going to collapse.
Yep.
So so our request is getting an amount of what we're going to do with the CIP
What's
request.
the question?
Who do we deal with?
The way it works.
DOE or facility?
The way it works for
yes.
us is typically the principal will submit a work order, right, into the system. We look at it. If we determine that it's a project, meaning like
A big.
building's gonna collapse, we route it to DOE. It's
Okay.
DOE's responsibility. We don't do that. We only will do things like
Fix a door.
fix a door,
Window.
fix a light switch,
All right.
those kind of things.
That answers my question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Senator Kim and then Senator DeFoy.
So surprise, I'm gonna talk about overpayment. So over $1 million. And traditionally, DOE have always had the highest overpayments. They're at 209. However, corrections is at $240,000 plus dollars. And what's more interesting is that law enforcement, which is a new entity, they're up to 135,000. They've only been there for 2 months. They started at 87,000 on the very first month. The second month, they've gone to 135,983, which is what is in November. So how do you get a new entity coming up and being overpaid by so much money in such a short time? Now, the law that we changed allows the departments to collect the monies in a greater scale than they're collecting, and they're not collecting. So is DAGS looking at how they're collecting these funds? These overpayments, because if we underpay a person,
Right.
you know the union's going to be on you, and you better come up with that money within a month.
Yes.
So now years go by, and then this doesn't even count the ones that we've written off that we couldn't collect.
Right.
So how are you responding? $1 million plus? and it keeps growing?
Yeah, and Chair, thank you for that. I mean, I'm sorry, Senator, thank you for that. You know, we provide this information to the departments. It is the department's responsibility to go and collect these monies from their employees. They're not DAG's employees. We can't dictate to those employees that, hey, you got to pay us, you know, pay us back. That has to flow through the department and through the director of that department. And I'm not trying to throw the directors of these departments under the bus, but the fact is, this is a responsibility of the directors. They need to take ownership of this issue, and they need to put processes in place that prevents overpayments.
Understand.
We just process payroll. That's what we're doing.
But you have a cabinet meeting
Yep.
regularly with
Yep.
all of the department heads.
We do.
Do you guys discuss this? And do you have the governor saying that because you're the one that write the paycheck that overpays them? So who is the one that says we got to collect them?
But we're not the ones that input the data into
No,
the
but
system.
But you pay
And
because.
so we wouldn't know that John Doe or Jane Doe was being overpaid, right? Until it's discovered through that process.
Find out.
It's discovered through the audit of the payroll.
Right. So, but then how are we collecting them? Somebody has. to
Again,
lead-
that's a department.
Lead this
I-
because it continues.
And we,
Here, well, it's up to each department. Each department is, this is the wild, wild west. All this money's being paid out, what other
Right.
people are suffering because they don't get the monies. Maybe if the departments know that their budget is gonna be reduced
Mm.
by the amount of overpayments. You think that might make them do something about this? I mean, we need something because we
Understood.
cannot have $1 million plus floating that was overpayments and somebody's have to eat that cost.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Good one for DHER too, isn't it?
I think it's a good one for the departments that are on this list, right?
It's
To be able to
huge.
provide information on what they're doing to address the overpayments. I can't
Taxation,
speak to what each department's doing. Unfortunately, I apologize.
it's economic development and tourism.
Sounds like a bill. Senator DeCoy.
So Director, I wanted to,
We, just really quick, I'm sorry, we do have a comptroller's memo that specifically addresses this particular issue. It's CM 2019-01, and you can look at that. It's online. It's on the comptroller's website. You can see it. But we do periodically issue and renew those comptroller memos to provide guidance to the departments
What about
specifically. So
collection?
it's all, I
No,
believe
the
it's
pro-
all
the problem is
included
there's
as
no
part.
enforcement. That's the problem.
Well, but the collection, the law says you can collect up to 75%
Yep.
what's due. You can collect $25 depending, but the department aren't collecting it, or you're not collecting it. Somebody's not collecting it.
Again, it goes back to the department.
Yeah, you gotta enforce with the
Yeah, on the
department.
meeting.
so Director, I wanted to go, I know that Jeff has just left.
Yes.
When do you guys look at filling that position?
We're doing it
for the
right
bond?
now. Actually, we just concluded IVA, which is internal, the internal process to see if there's any candidates that might be interested and qualified. And now we're doing open recruitment for that particular position. So we're moving quickly. In fact, we started that process when we were initially notified by him that he intended to retire. So similarly, the other EPMs and the other districts were moving equally fast.
So Jeff covers the entire Maui County.
Maui County, which would mean Maui, Lanai, and Molokai.
How far backed up are we on projects with you folks that falls under? And is that one position enough or?
I think about similarly like what we're dealing with on Hawaii Island and how you were able to create 2 district offices. Well, the way I look at it is like this. The DOE has complex area superintendents that are equivalent to our engineering program managers in terms of responsibility. One of the reasons why we pushed for that additional district office was because on Big Island, they got 3. So why does DOE have 3 and we only had 1? So now we've got 2. So similarly for Maui, I believe they got 2 complex area superintendents, at least 2. So maybe we need to start looking at, do we need another district office to be able to cover some of that additional responsibility? But I mean, open to have those discussions.
Some of the challenges I found, and this is probably something DOE should start to look at, is some of these principals are unaware
Mhm.
of reporting. And then we end up with this big project because they don't know what they're doing.
Okay,
So,
we should probably save that question for the DOE.
oh no, I like them here now because they stay on vacation, but maybe they're listening so they can hear me, but.
You have a good point.
They've been waiting 2 months for them, but
understanding the process, I think, is really critical and important because if they can go through their schools, identify issues, enter them into the system, we look at them, we process them, we either handle them or we push them back to DOE because they're bigger than what we can handle and they're outside of our service level agreement.
So do you ever have an interaction with those principals?
Absolutely. Not with the principals, I'm sorry.
Just strictly with DOE?
With the complex area superintendents, we meet with them periodically.
Maybe I gotta talk to them.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we're gonna adjourn and then we need to take 15 minutes so that we can set up.
Thank you, Chair.
If you have
Thank you, members.
questions,
Thank
'cause
you.
I know people still have questions, forward them to the committee clerk and then we'll put together a question. Okay, so we'll convene, let's say at 1:10.